Hello, everyone. This is Jacob Popio, the producer of The Apex. This episode, Jan and I take the mobile podcast studio onto the road to Whispering Grace and Freedom Farm. We were blessed enough to speak with the co-founders Bill and Marcia Shearer. In the episode, we talk about faith, a life-changing field trip to a farm, how horses could change the lives of some other people. We also explore the question, how in the world can a human being have a relationship with a horse? And then lastly, we go into lead with your heart. If you want to support us, there are two ways that you can do so. One, to donate to our cause, visit www.patreon.com/The Apex Podcast. The second way is completely free. If you learn something from this episode, all we ask is you share it with a friend. Please subscribe and hope this pushes you toward your apex.
Welcome, Apex Chasers, to another episode of the Apex Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jan Almasy, and seated across the table from me today, a special edition of this episode, is not Mr. RJ Holiday, as you guys have come to know and love, but our wonderful producer, Mr. Jacob Popio.
Hello, everyone. That's me, Jacob. It's good to be here.
I'm super excited to have him back behind a microphone. It's going to be a lot of fun because when we first started this out, the first episode we actually recorded together was on the road in Dean Kaler's living room.
Yeah.
I mean, way back. I mean, this is like...
It was warm outside.
It was. This was like...
August.
Of last year. Yeah. So before, the Apex podcast was even really a thing, we had just had this idea. It was like, hey, it'd be cool to go interview this person. And then we got mad that there was an ice cream truck in the background.
And you were like, hey, I think I really want to do this. And I was like, I have all the recording equipment, so
yeah.
Let's do it.
Here we go. We've gone from getting mad at an ice cream truck to recording in a horse barn. There we go. Progress. Okay, so as I just mentioned right now, and if you guys have seen the live video, if you guys tuned into that, we are currently sitting in the Freedom Farms barn here as a part of the Whispering Grace Horses conglomerate. This package of abilities that is capable of providing outreach to a lot of different people. So I'm just going to read some stuff directly from their website here. So their mission here is to provide healing of the heart while encouraging an atmosphere of hope through Christ-centered prayer and guidance in the community. And their vision here at Whispering Grace Horses is to provide resources to rescue the equine, mentor, and family and individuals seeking availability. The ability to offer hope for the entire family unit and also to individuals, as well as the entire community, provides an outreach opportunity, creating a safe and positive environment. So this is an interview that we've been wanting to do for a little while. Jacob is extremely passionate about this and first put this on my radar, months ago.
September,
at this point.
Probably.
Yeah, it's been a while. But why don't, before we kind of dive into introducing the guests, what made you so passionate about this when you first found out about it? Well,
firstly, my girlfriend is very timid about a lot of things when she's talking about it. But when she talks about Freedom Farm and Whispering Grace and all her relationships with the horses and the relationships with Bill and Marcia, she really brightens up and she can talk about it to anyone and not feel very timid or quiet. And so once I see the brightness and that smile that she has, like in her eyes, it really brought to my heart, oh, well, this is very special to her. So I felt curious. So on Sundays, I started cleaning up the horse trots or whatever you would want to call
the
it.
Stalls.
Yeah. The stalls and replenishing the dust and deep cleaning them. And really, I felt like doing that on Sunday mornings before we go to church. It helps center my heart and my mind to accept Christ and go and help others in a way. So it really has me excited because I think their mission of their development between the people that they are able to provide outreach for and provide outreach between the human interaction with the horse and then the human with other humans. It's all about the relationships, and I really would like to dive deeper within this relationship and dive deeper in this podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to this. So with that description, I would like to introduce Mr. Bill and Miss Marcia. Welcome to the show.
Well, we thank you very much to both of you for the opportunity to tell the story about Freedom Farm and Whispering Grace horses. And you know, when Jacob mentions his girlfriend Tori, she has become an inspiration to us, and we're working the best way we know how to make Jacob a little bit more of a cowboy. You know, so we're going to see what we can do about that.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that when he was describing, you know, struggling for the word stall right there. So I was in 4-H for 13 years growing up. I grew up on a goat farm. I've had hogs, I've had chickens, turkeys, lambs, dairy goats, meat goats, pretty everything except for horses, really. You know, I have experience with steers and everything else. And so I've been, you know, knee deep in crap since I was 6 years old, which is, you know, I think there's something to be said about that type of work. You know, I still love baling hay in the summertime with my cousins and everything like that. And
we will remember that, Jan. We'll remember that.
Duly noted. Yeah. No, I plan on trying to come back, you know, especially after, seeing Tori talk about it so passionately has caused him to be ignited about it. And he doesn't get excited about a whole lot of stuff. So like when he gets amped up, it's like a school kid that like found a present underneath the Christmas tree or something. You know what I mean? So, yeah, he gets super excited. And so I'm like, oh, like I want to go be a part of that because it's contagious. You know, the feeling that you're able to provide to people is contagious. That's a good thing. So to start everything out, why don't we just start, where you came from and where you grew up, and then we'll just start our mission here on the show with how y'all met and where y'all came from, because none of this would be possible if you two hadn't ever come together.
Well, that's very true there. None of this would be possible if Marcia and I didn't both share the passion for what we've created here. And I kind of grew up myself at the racetracks. My dad owned racetracks. My dad owned race horses, and we traveled all over the country watching our horses race, and then I just began to progress with horses, and we got into showing 4-H horses, and then we got into better horses, and then I got into what we call reining and cutting quarter horses, and matter of fact, that's how I met Marcia. I met her through the horses. Her brother and I became very, very good friends. Her brother, Dr. Mike Lee, is a veterinarian in Medina, Ohio, and owns a very, very successful practice there, and so I would spend a lot of time with Michael, and his little sister just grew up. That's all that happened. And so she became the Ohio quarter horse queen, and so I had to marry that queen. And ever since that, we have been able to raise children together. We've been able to share our love for education, and now again we share our love for horses. And so, without the competence of my wife in terms of all the scheduling that she does, and all of the down to earth meeting of people and making them feel welcome to what we do, there could be no better partner.
That's awesome. So what would be your take on how that situation developed?
Well, he was my brother's best friend, and I wasn't allowed to date any of my brother's friends.
I feel that way about my sister.
He would not let me date any of his friends until Bill. And he said, and look what happened. I ended up marrying him. So we were very fortunate and very thankful that we are very close with my brother and his wife, too. So it really works out really nice. So it was a good time growing up together and showing horses together and falling in love, and now we're back into the horses again.
Yeah, so everything kind of came full circle.
Full circle, yeah.
Yeah. Jacob was actually just talking about that when we were on our way here, about how odd it is that, we were just talking about fate, time, and circumstance before everything came on, where everything just seems to end up connecting back to itself.
I think, if it's a couple of words that we've maybe taken out of our vocabulary, One would be coincidence. I don't think we believe in too many coincidences anymore. We believe that Christ has become a centerpiece of our life along with our horses, and we just believe that He has directed us to where we've been, where we are, and the experiences that we're having. And there are so many times that I am literally amazed in terms of the feelings He puts in our hearts and the words He puts in our mouths. And there will be many a times that somebody will ask me what exactly I said an hour ago, and to be honest with you, I can't even remember. I can't even remember, and it's because we truly believe that in special circumstances that we get a little bit of guidance from that man upstairs, or we meet him, and needless to say, it's just something you mentioned, fate. And that's another word that is hard for us to continually use. I used to use it a lot. I used to use the word luck a lot. Coincidence, fate, luck, we kind of taken out of our vocabularies. And what has transpired by doing that has been truly, truly amazing. And so there are so many situations. So many times that we've been placed at the right time, the right location, and this may be tonight. This may be one of those, because we hope that at somewhere along the line, in these different podcasts that we have done, the different radio shows we've been on, the television shows we've been on, that we can reach out maybe to one person, and if they're having trouble opening that door of hope, that somehow we can help them jar it open.
Right. Now, I was listening to kind of relate this to like a business concept. I was just listening to, there's a podcast called, Andy Frisilla hosts this podcast, and we align ourselves here at the Apex Podcast with a company called First Form. They do supplementation and, workout supplements and stuff. And one of the things that he says is that regardless of what you're selling or at a service that you're offering, you're only ever offering or selling two things: hope or convenience. Those are the only two things that you really ever offer. He's like, people love Amazon so much, and Bezos makes that so much money because it's convenient. Mm-hmm. Bottled water is convenient. Mm-hmm. Whoever decided to monetize putting water in a bottle was a genius, right? Well, hope is that other piece, where the human, we're very tribal by nature, just anthropologically. So if we believe that other humans care about our needs, and that gives us hope for a better future, and then forming that relationship, whether it's, tonight we're going to explore forming that relationship with an animal, or you're forming that relationship with your best friend's sister, and it ends up blossoming into this beautiful relationship. It's that hope for something better, that there's something, beyond the horizon, that you have to have trust. And so that fate, time, and circumstance quote, the other half of that is that, we know who controls it. Mm-hmm. As far as, I'm a Catholic, we're all Christ believers here. And then, I have friends that aren't, they're Buddhist. I have some friends that operate under other religions. And the interesting thing is that the common theme between almost every religion is that if you, whether it's karma, people call it karma, whether you put good intentions out and you get good residual back, or you believe that Christ is guiding, or you believe that, a different entity, if you're having trouble discerning whether, you believe that there's something out there, but you're not really sure what it is, it's almost impossible in the history of human nature to not have something fill that void that says there's something bigger controlling it.
We've kind of simplified what you're really adding a lot of words around, a lot of interesting words, but here's what we think, and this is pretty simplified. You're either in a mess, out of a mess, or you're going to get in one.
That's fair.
Okay? Yep. That's a pretty fair appraisal of our lives. And anybody that doesn't tell you that they are broken in some way, then they're not telling you the truth. because this world that we live in, there's only been one perfect individual, and that his name was Jesus Christ, and he's the only one that has been perfect. And whether we want to admit it or not, we all go through the trials and tribulations of everyday life. And you know what? If you wake up in the morning and you don't expect a battle, then you know what? You're not paying attention to what's going on, because there's too many things in life that challenge us. And you know what? That day that Adam and Eve were created, and the mistakes were made, that's the day that we in this world were given free will. Okay, free will. Our decisions are up to us to make, and so I guess that's why my dad, every time when I was single and every time I'd go out, he'd always mention one thing to me. He'd say, just remember your last name when you go out. He says, because if you get in trouble, that's the name you're going to be using. And it's something that I've always remembered. I always told both of our daughters that. And this world we live in, we just create, we really appreciate the apex with an ability to go out and reach so many individuals, and in a way in which so many individuals, whether they want to admit it or not, tonight they may be admitting some things, at least to themselves. And that's where that's where the journey begins. And so, we've all heard that statement. The hardest part of a journey that we're going to take is the first step, deciding to take that first step. And so, for us to have an opportunity to share with Jacob and Jan tonight, hey, it's an honor for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. My dad and my grandpa actually tell me the same thing all the time. It was actually a big piece of the Apex address when I gave it was, I said, if you're proud of your last name, go out into the world and show people that you're a force to be reckoned with. If you're not proud of your last name, be the one that changes that definition and give your grandkids stories to listen to about, you should be the one that your kids are telling your grandkids bedtime stories about how awesome, that generational stuff is, because stuff gets passed on through families, and you are able to set that reputation in that last name. It's actually, it's a big piece of in the military why they wait to give you your last name to wear on your uniform. You're not allowed to wear that until, in the Air Force, it was week 4 of basic training. So you've already been getting your butt handed to you on a silver platter for 4 weeks, and then you're allowed to wear your name, because the way that they look at it is you've earned the right to announce this last name is now on a uniform.
Well, I think that distinction transcends just even past your last name. If you have like a company or a message that you believe in, like the Apex or Whispering Grace or Freedom Farm, you wear that name as an extension of your own last name. So when you carry yourself out, like if we go to a bar or something, we don't want to be complete idiots like we were talking about earlier. Yeah. You want to carry yourself with a pride in your name and in your company, because that transcends like, oh, well, if that's a faithful man and like I'm really hurting, I want to be led by someone to help find Jesus, to find like the right path to faith and lead a better life.
Right. So why don't we'll transition here and we'll kind of move into, now that we have a pretty, good understanding of where y'all are coming from and where we're at as far as, the coexistence of our messages here on the Apex and at Whispering Grace. Why don't we'll fast forward to, at some point Whispering Grace didn't exist and it came into existence. So why don't we tell the story about how that first part, obviously we're sitting in the Freedom Farms barn now, which will be a different can of worms, but how did that original idea start, and then how did it develop?
Well, as we kind of mentioned early on, I kind of grew up with horses, and so did Marcia. But as I grew older, and as I approached college age, getting out of high school, I had a gentleman in my life, James Lessig was his name. He was the athletic director at Bowling Green State University, actually, and he was an idol of mine, and I wanted to be like him, so I wanted to become an educator. And I became a teacher, and I became a coach, and along the way, was able to meet Marcia, and after becoming an educator and a coach, and I had aspirations of becoming a head coach, and which happened, and then we had our children, and at that time we grew away from horses, and I played a lot of golf. And I got a little good at it, and had some success with it, and it kind of drove me for a while, and I wanted to practice all I could, and Marcia was very, very tolerant, but as time went on, education continued to be a part of our lives, and then of course it came time to retire from education and play more golf. And so I would pick up, when I was retired, I would pick up my youngest granddaughter from kindergarten, and we would go to a different Subway every day. And I taught her to like mustard, okay? I'm very proud of that. And so one day, thinking of things to do, Marcia suggested that we visit a farm that she went out to on field trips. And she said, Nickajack Farms here locally, they have geese, they have sheep, they have llamas. I think, Bill, they even have some horses. Maybe you can renew your love for the horses. And so we went out there unannounced, and the owner of the farm, Debbie Seabolt, mentioned to me, she said, oh my goodness, with your background, you just told me grew up with horses, and you had great horses, and we just got 2 horses in off the racetrack. She says, do you think you'd want to work with one? And I said, no. I said, I'm just playing a lot of golf right now and really enjoying it. And she says, oh my goodness, you're here. She says, you're here. At least come down and look at them. And so I went down and looked at them. And one of these horses that just had gotten off the racetrack 3 months earlier walked on over right to the gate where we were standing with my granddaughter, Emily. And she was pitiful looking, just absolutely pitiful. I could see every bone in her body. There was no hair on her back. And I looked at her, and then I looked at the owner, and I said, you know what, if you want me just to come out here on my own time and work with her, would that be okay? And she said, that would be perfect. So I think it was that evening I went home and grabbed Marcia and brought her back out to the farm and said, maybe we could just work with her, just have a little bit of fun. And so that happened for about a week. And then I said to Marcia, I said, you know what? I heard people actually lease horses now. They don't buy them, they lease them. And the owner of the farm would pay everything except the leasing fee, but she's ours to work with. So that happened. This horse's name is Cat, Personal Cat. Mm-hmm. And actually, she's a relative of the horse that won the Triple Crown last year, Justify. And she never won a race. She never won one. And so we started working with her. And after we had leased her for a week, the owner of the farm came to us and said, Bill, I kind of have some good news and some bad news. And she says, I might as well give you the bad news first. Since you've been working with Cat here, 2 families have kind of been sneaking around the corner to see what's going on, and 2 families want to buy her. But the good news is I'm going to give you an opportunity to buy her if you want to. So I bought a horse. But first, I have to clarify, I made an important consultation before I bought that horse. I consulted with my 6-year-old granddaughter. Mm-hmm. And she
Sometimes
confirmed.
That's where the best wisdom can come from.
She confirmed that we should make this purchase. And so Personal Cat became a part of the Shearer family. And probably after about 2 or 3 weeks with Cat, you would think that a horse coming off of a racetrack, a racing career, that you'd be able to pet him, brush him, walk him, none of which we could do. And having known horses, it was easy to see that her past was kind of troubled. So of the hundreds of horses both of us probably have been around in our lives at that point, I said to Marcia, I says, you know what? I've never seen a horse try this hard. She's trying to please us. She's trying to be with us. She doesn't understand everything that we want. And she's literally, honestly, changed our lives. So, do you think she can change the life of some other people? And that's how it all started. Because even though she was skittish, even though she was nervous, she would finally, we would find a place to bring her adrenaline down, and she was amazing. And so, but we knew in our honest way of thinking about horses that she wasn't quite exactly what we needed if we wanted to involve others. So we looked at some other horses. We looked at 30 other horses before we found our second horse. 30 is a big number for us. 30 horses, we found our second horse, and 30 properties we looked at before we ended up where we are today. And so it's, 40 is a big number in the Bible. 30 is a big number for this year. So we finally found that horse, a horse that was headed to what they call a kill sale, where horses are killed every Friday, close to where we live here. Buyers come in from Canada, and they'll bid on horses, and then they'll go in a feedlot, and then those horses will be packed up the next day and go to the slaughterhouse. And there's a young lady in Cambridge by the name of Julie Copper, and she goes to these sales, and she'll save horses every week. And so, to make a long story short, we went down a long lane, and you got a picture that Lucy is the 30th horse that we looked at. And we're probably 1,000 feet away from this horse being tied to a trailer. And my wife looks at me and she says, well, this is the one. And I said, how in the world could you say that? I mean, Marcia, we are, horses, first of all, and we're 1,000 feet away from, she says, I'm telling you, this is the one.
So I'll pause you, and I'm kind of curious, what did you feel as you were walking down?
Oh, I definitely think it was the Holy Spirit telling me that she was the right horse for us. She was. And she has been.
I'll clarify. I've been eating crow for going on 6 years, and anybody that knows what that means, it means you're making apologies to your wife for making the right decision,
right?
Because she has been an unbelievable advantage, an unbelievable addition, an unbelievable selection to what it is we do. Because it doesn't make any difference with Lucy. You know what? She just wants to meet everybody and be with everybody.
So I'm going to kind of rabbit hole for a split second, unless there's something you want to...
Well, I know for a fact that's Tori's favorite horse on the premises.
Well, I'm learning a lot tonight about that.
You probably should have said that it was Personal Cat. That would have gotten a lot more brownie points, because that's his favorite horse.
So you guys will catch on as we kind of continue to guide through this, that and he kind of catches on to it too at this point, where people will start talking about stuff, and then I'll kind of like look off into the distance, and I'm like, oh, that triggered something. So I think that you call it the Holy Spirit, right? Us sit at this table would call it the Holy Spirit. There's a lot of people that call it your conscience, people that would call it your little voice,
Feeling.
Yeah, a gut feeling. There's people, your instinct, you know what I mean?
Right.
And a lot of people try to, and this is one of my major fatal flaws, is I am an over-rationalizer. And it's what caused me to leave the church when I left the church, and it was actually what ended up causing me to come back. That's a whole different can of worms. But that gut instinct, that little voice, whatever you want to refer to it as, is so underrated today and so second-guessed by people that they're like, oh, well, society is... the guys on social media are telling me that I need to do this to get my business to expand. So my gut's telling me I need to do this, but I'm going to do that. And it almost always ends up blowing up. So like where we are at with the Apex right now has essentially been a giant, now coming up on 2-year-long gut instinct journey of, hey, let's start posting things on Facebook, because I remember being depressed and borderline suicidal in high school. And then, 6 kids committed suicide in 6 months at Perry,
Right.
which is a high school, local to our area. So I was like, you know what? I need to start writing. And I just tweeted today, I was sitting across the table from a brigadier general, a retired brigadier general, recording a podcast when a year and a half ago, I was just some crazy kid posting things on Facebook. What the heck?
It's the spirit. It just
Right.
pushes you into the right
And so
direction.
that gut instinct, and what I'm going to try to relay to the people that are listening right now is, whatever you call it, whatever, religion you abide by, or whatever, God you believe is present or not present or whatever, that instinct, you learn to trust it a little bit better. Because a lot of times what I found is you get a gut feeling and you over rationalize yourself out of it, or you get scared, you get stuck. You're afraid to take that first step. You end up paralyzing yourself. People call it paralysis by analysis, because you're trying to make the right decision, or you're so afraid of making a wrong decision that you don't make any decision at all. Like, it needs to be a perfect decision. Not necessarily. It just needs to be a step in the right direction, and you can change things along the way. But sometimes those gut instincts are the ones that lead to the best results. In the case of,
Very fulfilling.
yeah,
It's a fulfilling life because it was your instinct. It was the spirit that led you to what you were meant to do.
right.
And those, your points are so well taken, and that's why, relationships are so important, because there are some decisions in our lives that we have to wake up to the fact that you've got to make this decision, you've got to make it. But how many situations are placed in front of us where we could use a little bit of help in terms of making a honest opinion of the situation? And that's why it really, really counts to surround yourself as best you can with the support you need. And that's exactly what Christ did. And you know what? And he surrounded himself with the most, it should amaze all of us in terms of what group he put together. Because you talk about one diversified group of men,
Right.
that would be it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I just believe that, thinking independently is a great attribute that Christ gives us. But you know what? On the other hand, he didn't create us to live alone either.
Right.
He
Yeah,
did
there's a
not
reason
do
why
that.
we have a need to be around other people.
Absolutely. And
There's a reason why solitary confinement is a punishment.
Well, the diversity kind of unites us in a sense.
Absolutely. And getting back to this horse thing a little bit, in terms of a relationship, and I don't want our listeners to walk away from thinking, what the heck are these guys talking about? Well, it sounds so irrational. How in the world can a human being have a relationship with a horse? But I'll tell you what, that question alone, you ask horse people that very same question, and they'll laugh at you, and they'll say, you know how easy that is to do. Because you know what? The relationship between a human and a horse and how it spills over into everyday life is so comparable. It's so comparable. Why should it be any different? To find a horse, a big, strong, and you know what? Some people come to us, not all people, but some people, they come to us with huge, big, strong, powerful problems in their life. So what do? We put them in front of a huge, big, strong, powerful animal, and that's when they form a relationship. Not only did they form it, but they never dreamt it could happen. And then when we start talking about relationships and what they had to do to get that attention of that horse, what they had to do to get the trust of that horse, and how long it took, and what benefit did you reap when that trust was established. Man, I tell them, if that doesn't give you the goosebumps on the back of your neck, you know what? I'll make an appointment for your physical examination. Because it's remarkable to see, and it's even more remarkable to feel.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had that same question. Like, oh, how can you ever have a relationship with this big thing that could kick you right in the head and knock
absolutely.
you out?
Absolutely.
I've taken care of many people in the ICU that got nailed, and now their left side of their body doesn't work.
But if
Right.
you
And-
attribute it to like respect, you have a respect for it, that you build that relationship, and that transcends.
Absolutely. Respect is something that's very, very important in establishing this relationship. But as new people step into the stall with a horse and they're scared to death, they look at us and they say, "But Bill, but Marcia, but whomever, can I trust this horse?" And you know what? I tell them, you know what? As that horse looks at you, that's exactly what the horse is saying.
Yeah,
Can I trust you?
becomes a very therapeutic.
And our horses, you know what, Jacob, you bring up some good points here about the way you felt. And our horses, all of them, have been through some very, very traumatic times in their life. And there are times that they, like us, reflect on those bad times. It's our job to try to erase as much as we can. We'll never erase it all. We just can't. Just like in our own minds. You know, when I used to play golf, I used to hit, 70 good shots. I'd hit 5 or 6 bad ones. Those are the ones I'd be
have
thinking
the water
about.
on the left, and you're like, "Oh, don't hit it in the water,"
Yep,
and you
those
duck
are the
hook it
ones
right
you
in
think
the water.
about. Those are the ones you think about.
Yeah, it's
And-
always the losses that tend to
And
stick
it's
in
just
people's
something
minds.
that I guess it's human nature, and it's the battles that we face. But this whole thing, we started out in Whispering Grace Horses with 2 families in 2012, and now we have 230 families that come see us and share with us. And Freedom Farm was created to deal strictly with our veterans. And people ask us, why does this thing with horses work with veterans? Why does it work with men and women that have served? Why does it work with our first responders, our firemen and our policemen? Well, it works, believe it or not, because horses think the same way that they do. Some of our veterans come to us, and they've literally, no doubt about it, run out of hope. They've seen too many things. They've been a part of too many things in their life, and they think there's no end to forgetting about it. And you know what? Our horses, they're thinking about today. They're not thinking about tomorrow. They're not thinking too much about the past because we've kind of cleared that up a little bit with them, but they're thinking about right now. What can you do for me right now? And the men and women that come in here that have served and have seen some of the atrocities that they've been a part of or seen, they're thinking about Bill, Marcia, session leader, horse, what can you do for me today? How can you make me feel better today? And you know what? That's our job. That's why we created this facility, is to think and understand that, you know what? If we can make this a better place for you today, if we can make this a place where you can come take deep breaths, not worry about being documented, not worrying about taking certain meds, but if you can spend a time with a horse and we can make it to the point where, you know what? This is a pretty good deal. I might come back tomorrow. I might even bring my wife with me tomorrow. Or I might bring my son or my daughter with me. You know what? Then building this facility of Freedom Farm, helping what we believe to be one of the most underserved segments of our population, then it was worth building.
Yeah, bringing them into the present.
Absolutely.
Their mind isn't always circling back to the past.
And, PTSD, that's a big thing now, post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, so many of our horses have it too, because those are flashbacks, thinking of things, places, actions that they've been a part of, okay? Those men and women that have given us so much to give us the name that we tagged on this particular place, Freedom Farm. We hope that we can understand what the freedom means to us, to provide it, and we hope that we can give them a little bit of freedom from where they've been, what they've experienced, and make it just a better day.
It's like an unspoken empathy between the horse and man relationship.
And believe me, those are the things, Jacob, that we can't explain.
Yeah.
You know, we have a saying in both facilities. We see things happen here. We have to trust them because we've seen them happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't explain them. Just can't.
Yeah. Like the spirit.
It's
segue.
And the thing that you know, anybody that wants to get associated with anything like this in terms of experience some time with horses and emotions, you better buckle up for emotions because you will experience some things you weren't expecting. And I know it happened to me. It's happened to me personally, and I've been around horses almost my entire life, as has Marcia, and of course, Marcia has, you know, she's a legend where she's been, you know, in terms of teaching. I mean, the way that remember that book, Everything You Should Know in Life You Learned in Kindergarten. Well, she was a kindergarten teacher, and so we're fortunate enough to even have some of her students as part of what we do, and so it's just something that the emotions that are involved in what we do. We have a definition of a successful day out here. Okay, if you can laugh and you can cry and you can pray, you know what? That's a good day. That's a good day. And so, if we can just let people who even may be listening tonight, and if they know of anybody that needs some help. Just let them know that Freedom Farm is a place that, gosh, we just want to help. And if somebody can get excited about coming out here and being a part of Freedom Farm, they have to understand that the people, the co-founders, this lady sitting across the table from me right now, we're twice as inspired as they are to be able to have an opportunity. Because you know what? This is embarrassing to say to both of you. But years ago, when we saw situations unfold before us, we would say to ourselves, that's really too bad. You know, I wish somebody could give that person help. And now those people, you know what? They become opportunities for us.
Mm-hmm. That's so that right there, that idea is, I mean, we're on two totally different sides of the spectrum as far as companies, you know what I mean? But mission statement is essentially the same, where the reason why we're doing what we're doing and why Jacob, myself, RJ are so passionate about what we do and forming, you know, the online communities and dealing with a lot of the mass social media and multimedia and everything is that this is a great way to reach thousands of people. And the original idea, and I try to stay true to that original idea when I first thought of it in my kitchen, as I do now, when we're going out traveling, you know, driving to Indianapolis to get interviews, planning trying to get on a flight to Cali to go get an interview. You know what I mean? It's starting to grow and steamroll. But that original idea was kind of what you said, where, you know, I looked at those. I've had a lot of friends go 6 feet under because of drugs. I've had a lot of friends go 6 feet under because of depression and suicide. A lot of military friends that aren't here. And for a long time, it was that, oh, that's too bad. Like that, I wish that person would have been able to go get help kind of thing. And now, you know, you get to a point where I call it a critical mass, where you reach a point where you're like, okay, no mas. Like, this is it. I can't deal with this anymore. Somebody has to do something. Why not it be me? Which is it's an interesting realization when you finally have that push where it's, crap, why haven't I been doing this for a while? And you almost have to, like, at least me personally, I had to, like, stop guilt tripping myself because I was like, oh, I could have been doing this, you know, 3 years ago. You know, what if? But I also had to give credit to the fact that 3 years, if I would have started this 3 years prior, that 3 years worth of experiences that I use now in the show wouldn't be there. The timing was planned. I just didn't know it at that point. Right? So with Whispering Grace, I know we kind of already started talking about Freedom Farms and that mission statement and everything. What are some, examples? We're talking about this relationship with horses and everything, and I don't want to dive too far into, personal details of people, but I think that a story, about a transformation would really kind of solidify that idea for the listeners as far as what can actually take place and change when somebody comes to a place like this and interacts with that type of animal.
Yes. Well, first of all, to explain what a session is at Whispering Grace Horses, when you come out to the farm, it's an hour-long session. We call it a session. And that session involves usually a chore because it helps them to own their session because everything is free at Whispering Grace. We don't charge anybody. So we have an hour long and we do a chore and we usually brush the horse. And then the rest of the time is usually taken out the horse and working with the horse and learning how to have that relationship by speaking the language of the horse and learning about the horse. So we do that for an hour session. One of the young ladies that came to us when we first started was a 12-year-old young lady that was having a lot of trouble with her friends. Most girls that are 12 years old do. Yeah. And she came out and she spent time with Lucy. And she would come sometimes and she would start brushing at the beginning of the session. And at the end of the session, she was still in the stall brushing because she spent the whole time talking. So she'd spend a whole hour telling me about every friend and what they said and how that hurt her and how this happened. And sometimes we would honestly, we always tell our session leaders to let the Lord lead them as to what that child needs that day. So sometimes we would go up and we just sit up on the hill at the farm and we would talk that way too. So it doesn't always have to be with the horse. But this one particular day I would tell you about that I think it was a really good day for this young lady. We took her down to the round pen with Lucy, took her halter off and let Lucy loose so Lucy could go anywhere in the round pen. And we directed Lily as to where she should walk or where she should go or how she should put the rope over Lucy. And she was just doing a great job. And all of a sudden, we started having her walk around the round pen. And sure enough, Lucy joined up with her. And she was right next to her and just like breathing on her neck. And she started crying. And we were like, oh no, did Lucy step on her or did she get hurt? So we were like, are you okay? Are you okay? And she turned and she said, yes, I'm fine. But she said, this is the first time all week that anybody wanted to be with me. So having that horse join up and be her friend, that relationship that she got with Lucy made all the difference in the world to her that week and made her week. So then, that's something she can carry into her everyday life, whether it be with her family, with her friends, just knowing that she's got that relationship going. It gives her confidence and it gives her a feeling of success. So she can take that into the everyday world.
Now that makes me, there's a gentleman that I think that y'all should meet, and we'll talk about this offline, but he was an interview on our show. His name is John Dietz. He was a former member of Perry's school board. We actually met at the Samantha's on North Market. They actually sponsored one of our episodes eventually. But we were just sitting at the bar in the morning eating breakfast. I had gotten off of a 12-hour shift. I was like, I'm going to go home, go to bed. And something was like, nah, you know what? Your fat self really wants pancakes. So I went back and I got pancakes. And I walk in and Denise knows that I get, a sunshine breakfast with cheddar on my eggs. I get 2 pancakes and 2 cups of decaf coffee with 2 strips of bacon after I get off a 12-hour shift. Not that I've ever eaten there before, but
yes.
So I'm sitting there, and John just looks at me, and he's like, man, you look like you've had a long night. And I always mess with him, and I was like, you were really trying to tell me that I looked like crap and I needed coffee, didn't you? And he was like, you can take it however you want, brother. But he, so he was just, he's been a blue-collar guy his entire life, worked at the gas company, just has this stuff. But he has a lot of these quotes, right? And we're actually starting a blog for him called The Spartans of Kindness. And so his whole mantra, Spartan warriors are bred from, 5 years old for war. He was like, that's what we need to do in the world for kindness, is that from the time you need to be so fervently willing to defend kindness that you're like a Spartan. And so one of his quotes is, it only takes 7 to 12 seconds to change someone's life. Or kindness is free. It doesn't cost anything and it can change someone's day. So he has all of these little quotes that he writes blog posts on. But that Lucy coming up to Lily in that pen, 7 to 12 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It completely transform.
It reverts back to what was a good day: laugh and cry and pray.
Mm-hmm.
So she laughed and she was able to cry. Sure, she prayed.
Absolutely.
Too, so
Absolutely, she did.
We always
transformed her.
We always finish a session with prayer. And, you know, Bill mentioned that we have about 230 families down at Whispering Grace Horses. And I just want to make sure to mention that our volunteers that are out here are amazing, because we couldn't possibly handle more than maybe 40 families, you know, with just the two of us being able to do it. But with all, we have almost 80 volunteers.
Wow.
That come out, and they spend, you know, they're doing it without any payment, and they are coming in and they are loving on the families and the participants that are here in a way that makes them want to come back every time. They can't wait to come back to Whispering Grace Horses and have that feeling when they walk in the barn again.
That's awesome.
And you know, it's so important. You know, we talk about Jan, you talk about being on different ends of the spectrum in terms of different types of businesses, but we all get into, whether it be organizations or businesses or schools or whatever, there are always leaders involved. And you know, I think along the way, from being in education and being coaching and administration, and now in terms of a co-leadership of a 501c3 nonprofit, that we learn a lot about leadership. We learn about right ways to go about things, because there's a lot of right ways to do things. Just like with horses, there's a lot of right ways to do things with horses. But you know what? There's a lot of wrong ways to do them too. And so it's just something that, advice for everybody that's out there that's even considering being a leader. I can only tell you this, that if you don't lead with your heart, you're not going to get very many people to follow you. And believe me, if you have a great mission and a great vision, I mean, fantastic, but you can't lead from your heart, then people aren't going to follow you. They're not. But if you lead from your heart and you have a lousy mission and a lousy vision, you know what? People will help you. They'll help you create that mission and that vision that you dream of. Because you know what? They're not seeing right through you. They're seeing to you. And there's a little quote for you, because it's one I just made up, as a matter of fact.
Hey, sometimes
because
those are the best ones.
It's very true. They find out, and one word we like to use here at Freedom Farm is, we hope that these men and women that come here, when they leave, will find a genuine place that they can come. There's no fakery. We don't try to dodge around situations. It's a place for them to take deep breaths, and that's why it was created. And so the leadership part, you know, my minister, Dwight Mason, who happened to be a young man that I actually coached in high school, he told me something 2 days ago before he left for Egypt. He said, you know, Jesus Christ, he says he was really, really tender-hearted. But you know what? He was really tough-minded. And those are two things to really remember. Because if you can spread those two ingredients within yourselves to other people, if they know that you have a tender heart, and yet, you know what, you're still a leader. Just like with our horses, we say the relationship is based in numbers like this. We as leaders, we get 51% of the relationship. We're the leaders. but they get 49% of the deal. That's a big part. I can tell you that a lot of people that own horses, that isn't the way it is. The older horses the horses that I had, the really good ones when I was out of college and with Marcia and whatever, I'm embarrassed to say it. I probably had 90% of that deal. You know what? If Bill Shearer was having a bad day, yep, my horses had a bad day too. But right now, these horses, I didn't give my other horses enough credit, because you walk into these stalls, these horses will tell you, they'll tell all of us, they'll tell an observer, this person's had a good day or he's had a bad day. That horse will tell them whether you want to be with me or whether you don't. I'll be able to determine it in a minute. And it's amazing to watch. We always say our horses are great listeners and they don't tell any secrets. And so the conversations that we hear, that we don't try to just stand over and watch or listen to, but as we go by, you would swear there's another human being in that stall. And there's not. They're just talking to that horse. And oh my gosh, some of the conversations that we hear are truly, truly amazing. Just amazing.
Those, I'm going to just pause for a second. I've got like 15 million things running through my head. But
Well, back to that leading thing, it kind of reverts back to like what we were referring to in the conscious and like leading by your gut. Maybe it's not your gut, it's your heart.
Well, that's well said, Jacob. We're going to make you a cowboy yet.
it's a beautiful thing when you get to the point where your heart and mind connect and are able to be on the same page. You know, and it's a delicate balance, because I say that there's always a dichotomy with everything. I don't believe that there's ever a 100% true blue decision that we make as human beings, right? You're always going to have good outcomes that come with it, and there's going to always be one or two bad things that come with it. You have to make the decision, are you willing to deal with the negative consequences for the positive side of things, or vice versa, right? So judgment is a skill. It takes practice to be able to exercise good judgment or act on your instinct. You know, when I first started boxing, I took home a novice class Golden Gloves belt from Cleveland in 2016. When I first stepped into the ring, I first took a right hook. My instinct, because I was a wrestler for so long, was to throw my gloves off, hit a single leg, and plop him on his head. Can't do that in a boxing ring.
Nope.
Okay. So you have to condition yourself and develop that instinct and that judgment to where, okay, I get hit with a right hook. I know that I left myself open. Now I know that that's probably going to come the next time. I'm going to weave, throw a 3-piece, and kind of move around. But I have to operate a lot off of my heart in the ring, because if you try to overanalyze it, that millisecond that it takes for your brain to tell your right arm to punch, your opponent saw your shoulder twitch. They can see it in your eyes. They can predict. But if you're just leading with your heart, it's what brought Jacob here in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. Tori is you get lit on fire for it because it's something you truly believe in your heart. People can feel it, which is why when I get so animated when I'm talking about these principles and, the podcast and everything like that, I know we experienced it when we were on the phone when I first called you. You're like, oh, I thought this was like a little college project that we were going to help you guys out with. And, and here I go off on a tangent, like explaining everything. And I feel myself get amped up like I do right now, like the hair standing up on the back of my arms, because I get so excited about it. And people can feel that and they want to become a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I guess, boy, you mentioned so many good points, and you mentioned one word, instinct. And, to the horse, we are the ultimate predator. Okay? They look at us, as somebody that really threatens them. Dogs and cats are predators. You corner a dog or a cat, find them in an angry mood, and they'll bite you. They'll do everything they can to really get at you. And it's funny because, horses, when they're scared, nervous, you know what they want to do? They want to run. They want to run away from it. But you know what we ask them to do? Just like if I was in the boxing ring with you, your instinct, if I get to throw a right punch at you, your instinct, of course, is to duck, to try to miss that right hook that I throw. The horse's basic instinct is to run when they're scared and nervous. But we say, not when you're with us. That's when we hear the stories of people getting hurt because they don't take the time with their horse to have that horse trust them. So when that horse is nervous or scared or the adrenaline comes to a certain point where they're just threatened, instead of running, we ask them to stay with us. Their most basic instinct, you can't take instinct away from any horse that's ever born, ever, for centuries. That's their basic instinct. They're a prey animal. They run when they're scared. And yet, we as the ultimate predator ask them to stay with us. That to me is the most honest compliment I can give that animal. That we give them an opportunity to run, but ask them to stay. That's a partner.
That's another quote.
Well, that's almost relatable to somebody that's really broken down and has nowhere to turn to. They want to run away from their issues instead of face them and stay.
And we always say in a relationship, some people say when people run from a relationship, well, when somebody comes back to a relationship, what do they have to do first? They got to run away or they got to leave. But you know what? Whenever somebody leaves a relationship, then you got to put on it, is this permanent? Is it temporary? What is it? Then it becomes, what does it take? That's where we get into grace. That's where we get into forgiveness. Who makes the first move? Who says the first thing? We get to talking to girls about that all the time, the adolescent girl, who makes the first move? Who says the naughtiest thing? Who says something you'll never forgive? So, grace is something else that we can talk about some other time, but that's by far the hardest thing to relay to anybody else.
Yeah. So the final piece that I really want to explore, and then we'll kind of wrap up here is, you had Whispering Grace and it was turning successful. You had a whole bunch of families and everything was dealing there. Did Freedom Farms just kind of happen by accident, or was there a specific situation that you can point to that it was like, hey, you know what? I saw that and I want to change something?
Over the years, we were asked over and over again to do something with our veterans, but we were always so busy with our families and never felt there was a time that we had for the veterans. And last year, our board of directors asked us, that we came up to the 5.5-year mark of Whispering Grace horses. And they said, when you first started, you had 3 horses. And now 5.5 years later, you have 7 horses. So in another 3.5, 4 years, are we going to have 14 horses? And do we need to build another barn? Where do we see this going with Whispering Grace horses? And Bill and I both said to the board that we're very thankful where we're at. And we think we'll just, sit tight with what we've got. And but we also know that the Lord's going to lead us wherever He wants us to go. And after that board meeting, we had a donation of the 5 acres that you're sitting in right now, $76,000 for this land for 5 acres. And when the donation came in, they said, now can you do something with the veterans?
Yeah.
And we said yes. So that's how Freedom Farm came about,
It was an amazing moment, and we said to the board at that time, we have the land to build this facility now, and do we want to build a barn? Well, we don't have the money to build a barn. Everything that we've done at Whispering Grace has been paid for through donations, through foundations, individuals, and our board said this to us: this is what you call faith. They said, well, don't builders have schedules? And don't their subcontractors have schedules? And we said, well, of course they do. But, and they didn't even let us finish the but sentence, but they said, well, then get on the schedule. And I looked at them and I said, what? We don't have, you don't understand. I said, we have the land, of course, but we don't have, they said, get on the schedule. And so what happened was, and we always say, God has his stamp on this facility, on both facilities, but this one, we had a family that has an electric company, and they kind of heard through rumors that we were going to build a facility for our veterans. They said, we want to donate all our electricity, all of our labor to Freedom Farm. And then there was a plumbing company that heard about what we were going to do. We want to donate all of our services in terms of plumbing to Freedom Farm. Mm-hmm. Then came a gentleman that owns a facility that builds trusses for buildings and posts, and they supplied all of our trusses and posts. And then a sand and gravel fellow became part of what we do and provided us with all the sand and gravel. And so you're talking about how did it evolve?
Only God.
It just kind of fell in the lap. Yeah. Yeah, those are, I mean, I was just talking to General Green today about how, like, I mean, we came into contact just by happenstance, right? And it's like almost all of the guests that I've come into contact with have just been, you know, people say, well, how do you, like, because I'm starting to get people asking me how to start podcasts. They want to get into the realm. They're like, well, how do you go out and get guests? How do you develop content? How do you do this? And the two things I tell them is, one, if you want to develop content, start living your life through your content. So every interaction that I have with people, I look at it as an opportunity to learn from them. One of my favorite poems is If by Rudyard Kipling. Okay, and in that poem it says, there's two lines that I really, really love. I read it every morning. And one of the lines is, if you can walk with kings and maintain a common touch. And the other line is actually from the Desiderata, which is another poem, but it says, listen to the dull and the ignorant, for they too have their lessons to offer you. So it's no matter where you are, what you're doing, I'm looking at it through this lens of, I want to build this content. And the content's everywhere. Once you start looking through that lens, it's like the conversation that I had with the lady at the gas station, right, is perfect for this. Or, you know, the interaction that I had here is perfect for this. I met this guy eating breakfast, and he ended up becoming a guest, and now we're starting a different company. You know what I mean? It's crazy when you start focusing on it. And then the other thing is don't focus so much on finding the guests. Let the guests find you. Mm-hmm. If you focus on developing your content, developing yourself, developing your ability to articulate your thoughts and your desires and your passion through the microphone, through the media, through what you're doing, guests will want to come on the show. Mm-hmm. You don't have to go up to people and harass them to get behind a microphone, because they'll be able to feel it and they'll want to come on. Mm-hmm. And so those are the two pieces of advice that I give people. And people look at me sometimes like I'm crazy, but well, that's really it. You know, I don't have any magic formula to say this is a sales pitch that you can give to people. Because if you're doing that, you probably don't believe in what you're doing enough. Your heart's not in it to where people can feel it and are attracted to it.
Well, you know, that's really what you're doing, what you both of you are doing in terms of reaching out. You know, opportunities that you create through your podcasts have opportunities to change lives by, you know, if somebody listens to a portion of, whether it be a beginning or the middle part or the end of this podcast, it's kind of like reading the Bible sometimes, because you can read the same verse on a Monday in 1985 and read the same verse out of the same Bible in 2010, and it means something completely different in your life. Mm-hmm. And when we're choosing our session leaders, we tell them this, and I don't care whether our session leaders range in age from 14 to 80. And we tell them that, you know what, If you can be with somebody and work with them and talk with them, you just may be the answer to their prayers.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? That's a big deal. When people come here and ask us to be a part of and to cherish with them their most prized possession, their child, if we don't take that seriously, the last thing that we want to do is waste an hour. We want an hour to represent something. And sometimes that hour is so diversified. It's completely different than the last time they came to see us, because sometimes what happened to them changes the situation. What they're feeling changes the situation. Maybe the mood of the horse changes the situation. But you know what? Being that answer, being you guys tonight may be the answer to somebody's prayers. And don't let anybody, that's so huge, that's so monumental, you shouldn't let any culture try to change that. Because what you're doing, what you're trying, what you're experimenting with, are lives.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going about it through, well, you both have faith. That's very easy to see. And in the day, in the age, and the world we live in today, well, it's a big deal. It just is. I keep saying big deal a lot in our experiences because, you know, I have my own definition of experience. I'll pass this along to you guys tonight, okay? Experience is what we receive just after we need it. That's experience.
Yeah.
And there's so many times, oh man, I wish I'd have known that before I did this. And
hindsight is always 20/20.
well, there's another one that kind of relates to it. It's just a different way of putting it.
Yeah.
But that what we gain through experience is big. And I think that as you guys, as other people who are maybe in the same business that you are, or as if it comes a time when you need help, and Jan, we talked about this. Sometimes we have to reach out, and you know what we have to do? We have to ask. Mm-hmm. A very important man in our lives, Paul Weaver, told us that one day. He says, we like what you do, but Bill, for everything you need, you got to ask. And you know what? When people look at you, there ought to be three things that you guys can say to them: that we have competence, we have character, and we have clarity. Those three C's, remember those. Because when important people look at you and want to be part of what you do, and you want them to be part of what you do, then you can say those three C's, remember them. Because
that is the third time that I've had a guest mention a set of three C's. One other guest mentioned those exact same three, and then General Green mentioned caring, competence, and confidence in a leader.
there you go.
I don't know what it is about the letter C and the words that are associated with it, but those seem to be
Maybe that's why
some
he
very
was named,
powerful words.
Maybe that's why he was named Christ.
There it is. Yeah. So I honestly, I mean, unless you have any parting words there, Marcia, but Jacob, is there anything? You know, I'm gonna get to the point where I'm just gonna let them advertise for Whispering Grace, but I think that is a phenomenal note to end on. I mean, I can't think of any better way to wrap everything up.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, so you have, you know, thanks for being with us. I mean, this has been phenomenal. Everything that I could have ever dreamed of coming out here and recording in the barn. So why don't you tell our listeners, you know, where they can find you, what they can do to help support if they would want to, and all the nitty-gritty details about Whispering Grace and Freedom Farms.
Well, you can find us on the internet. It's www.whisperinggracehorses.org. Our phone numbers are right on the website, so that you can find some testimonials. You can reach us. We're very accessible. We are who we say we are. We're just not another organization that needs help feeding their horses. We want people to realize that, and we have been blessed with the wisdom and the knowledge and the direction through our volunteers and through our board of trustees that's also listed on that website, and our growth has been directed from above, and we believe that we have been placed in a very comfortable spot for us in terms of having education background and also knowledge of horses. And when we speak about horses, all I can say to our listeners out there tonight is that it's a place where you can honestly initially feel safe, and we don't believe that anybody can gain any confidence without feeling safe. And I don't care whether you're talking about horses or a new job or something that you want to try. I think we want to try to feel safe. Sometimes we don't, and that's what gets us into trouble. But we are excited about having an opportunity to be on the Apex and relate with these two great young men.
Awesome. So with that, Apex Chasers all over the United States and internationally. If you want to support the Apex podcast, the best place to go is www.patreon.com/the Apex podcast. Every donation that is made on that website, we get 90% of. That helps us with audio equipment. It allows us to travel, pays for hotel rooms when we go to get guests on the show, allows us to continue to advance our cause and continue to get the best equipment to give you guys the best possible quality in our content, and to continue advancing our ability to provide content. So that is, again, www.patreon.com/the Apex podcast. Another place, if you guys want to support yourselves, one thing that I always make sure that I have on me when I go to work is First Form Opti Greens, and I take their multivitamin every day. If you want any more information on that, you can feel free to DM us on Instagram at either the Apex Podcast on Instagram or at Jan_Almasy, or Doc Holiday 92 is RJ. If you want help with diet, nutrition, supplementation, and want to know why we stand behind First Form supplements so fervently. So, Popio, is there anything
I would
from you?
Definitely say check out Whispering Grace and Freedom Farms. Just my little experiences that I have gone through already has really changed me, and just check it out. It's a cool place. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, and with that, we will see you guys next time.